WGN-TV's Paul Lisnick in for Steve Bertrand today, continuing our hard-hitting news hour. Joining me on the phone now is Congressman Krishnamoorthi, Democrat of Illinois' 8th District, where he's out in Washington doing the people's work. We're going to catch up with him on that. And if you have questions or you want to text a question for Congressman Krishnamoorthi, you can do that at 312-981-7200. It's a great opportunity to reach one of our congressmen. 312-981-7200. Congressman, thank you for joining me here on WGN Radio.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing well, and I just my guess is you've had a busier end of year this year, right? You probably used to be home with your family and you have parties, and now you got to explain to your wife why they're not seeing you.
You know, it's been interesting. I've been going back and forth so much just during the holiday time frame to D.C. that. You never would have known that there is a holiday right now.
Sure.
But, our president has managed to, increase our commuting, so to speak. It is what it is at this point. I go back on Saturday to get sworn in this weekend for a third term, and off we go.
And so let's talk about that, because this is a really magical time when the president, for example, wasn't deciding whether he would veto the COVID legislation and the omnibus budget. Had he done what is known as a pocket veto, which is just do nothing, that legislation would, as you know, just vanish with the end of the Congress. Okay, he signed it and that's done. But the work isn't done because, as you know, the president is demanding $2,000 checks. Nancy Pelosi couldn't come out fast enough and say, we'll do that. And the House passed it. You did your job. I know I'm asking you some Senate questions, and that's not where you serve. But nevertheless, you know what has to be happening over there. Do you think Mitch McConnell put out a checkmate move? Because for people that don't know, whereas people like Bernie Sanders and other senators said, look, let's just vote on a $2,000 overall payment. We'll send everybody $1,400 next year, and let's keep it clean. Mitch McConnell said, I got a better idea. Let's vote on that $2,000, but while we're at it, let's talk about Rule 230. So President Trump and other people not happy with Twitter can go after them when they anger them. And by the way, while we're at it, let's create an election fraud board that will explore all the election fraud. Here's the thing. We know what he's doing. It's a poison pill. But is that a master chess move by McConnell?
I'm not sure it is this time, and here's why. There's two things going on. One is, he could offer that up as a vote for people to take. But, clearly that is not the bill that passed the House. And so nothing can become law before the session ends unless he votes up or down on the bill that passed the House, which is, the clean increase in the stimulus payments. The reason why, that would obviously present a dilemma for his members is that, some of them, for instance, the Georgia Senate candidates, want to get this done, and the only way to get it done is by actually voting on the House bill. Voting on the other bill, would basically mean that the measure would die because Congress ends in 3 days. So the bottom line is, there are millions, there are more than 10 million people unemployed. There are millions of families that need the money. They need it now. And they'll see through that measure, and they're both Republicans and Democrats. The question is, does he want to expose his members to their ire or their fury once they recognize that he just, got people to vote on something that's going nowhere this Congress?
So what is your, you mentioned the Georgia Senate races. That runoff is coming up next Tuesday. And if Mitch McConnell cares about anything, it's maintaining control of the Senate and becoming, and remaining majority leader. So my question is, if essentially he kills this bill, which is what he's doing, if you are Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, they both come out and said, hey, we support $2,000, but they never actually have to follow through with it. So it looks like they're supporting the president. Their constituents at home support the president. Does this hurt them, or does this help them, in your opinion, as you monitor politics, back in the Georgia election?
It's very interesting. I think it depends on Trump, because Trump wants the $2,000, I think. I think he does want that to happen. It's part of his legacy, et cetera. And so if he decides to take to Twitter and say, don't get caught up in this other bill, vote or vote yes on both, that will put a lot of pressure on McConnell. And the other twist here is that there's something called the National Defense Authorization Act.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next. Go ahead.
Yeah, that act is what funds the military, and it won, more than 370 votes in the House, hugely bipartisan. Everybody wants to just override the president's veto on that and get it taken care of, within the next day or two. Now, Bernie Sanders and maybe even others might basically say, look, we are not going to, vote to allow that bill to proceed, the override, unless you, have a clean up and down vote on the $1,400 additional stimulus payment. So it kind of all gets mixed up together a little bit, but that's I think how policy gets made in the Senate.
Well, and by the way, and my understanding is that Pat Toomey and another senator are essentially stepping in and kind of killing the Sanders effort, but that's inside baseball. The bottom line is, if even let's say Sanders was successful and he demands his 2,000 vote, the more he pushes that off, I mean, that Congress, the Senate dissolves too. What happens to the National Defense Act?
That's a problem, to say the least. Because basically they don't have the money to fund a lot of military operations. I'm talking about things as basic as paychecks. I'm talking about pay increases for our troops who have, it's like a 2 or 3% pay increase, which doesn't sound like a lot, but, these are people that are counting on it and they deserve it. But the bottom line is, I think that there would be a lot of heck to pay back in the home districts for a lot of people if that did not get passed this week.
Yeah, and it's of course it's amazing that the reason for the president's veto is this Rule 230, which is this Twitter problem he's got, and he also doesn't want Confederate bases renamed for non-Confederates. And yet I have seen there were certainly some Republicans in the House, as you know, and there are some Republicans that don't want to challenge him. One Republican from Oklahoma said, look, he's the commander-in-chief. If he has his reasons for doing it, I'm going to stand behind him.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Paul, to me, that is a craven political move to vote for the NDAA in the first instance, the defense spending bill, and then to turn around and vote against it or vote to sustain the president's veto just because he is upset about Section 230 having nothing to do with the military, by the way, or saying that somehow it's in the best interest of the military to keep these bases named after Confederate soldiers, which is offensive. So I think that type of a vote is, I think it'll come back. They'll be held accountable for it, hopefully.
Well, there's lots more to talk to you about. January 6th is coming up. That's going to be a fun day for you.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
So,
the day after January 5th.
So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. If people want to have questions, you can text or call 312-981-7200 for Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. Congressman, I'm sure as you travel back and forth to Chicago, you are worried about what the weather's going to be, aren't you?
We booked multiple flights at this point.
Yeah, well, I just wanted you to say yes because I'm going to answer your weather questions by sending us to Gabe Selgott. Gabe, the congressman wants to know about the weather.
Well, Congressman, it is cloudy outside, but we don't have to deal with the snow like we did yesterday. It's 29 degrees now at O'Hare, 31 at Midway, 30 at the lakefront, and we're seeing temperatures in the upper 20s in some of the suburbs. It'll continue cloudy through tonight and a little windy. It'll also be cold with a low just 19. Wind chills, however, will make it feel colder than that. The inbound Stevenson is 35 minutes from the Veterans Memorial Tollway to Lakeshore Drive. Outbound is 33, and Lakeshore Drive is slow on both sides between Navy Pier and the Oak Street Curve. I'm Gabe Selgado on the IDOT Traffic Center reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life or death.
We are back on Chicago's Afternoon News. I'm WGN-TV's Paul Lisnick, host of WGN-TV Political Report, in for Steve Bertrand, and having a lovely conversation with Illinois Congressman, Democrat from the 8th District, Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, and questions for the Congressman, 312 888-981-7200. You can text as well. So, Congressman, January 6th, right after the holidays, is meant to be a sort of, ceremonial day. The vice president counts the electors from the states. The new president, President-elect Joe Biden, should be announced. And everybody says congratulations, and you all go home. That doesn't look like that's what's going to happen.
Oh, my goodness, no. I remember, 4 years ago, I remember not remembering this this particular ceremony that happened because it was so unremarkable, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton lost, Donald Trump won, and we moved on. This time around, it's not going to be that way. There's going to be a lot of histrionics, theatrics, dramatics, whatever word you want to use, and we're going to be wasting a lot of time that day, talking about the election and various conspiracy theories on the other side.
Well, by the way, we always knew there would be certain members of Congress, of the House, who were going to do this. You may or may not have known that one of your future colleagues, 15th District, Congresswoman-elect Mary Miller, she will be objecting as well. She issued a press release today saying that she will stand with Trump and she will be electing as well. So that issue comes close to home. So here's the thing, and I believe the way this happens is it's state by state, right? So Arizona, Pennsylvania, every time a state is read off, that will be the opportunity for the House and the Senate, which are in joint session. At that point, a member of the House will stand up and say, I object, and then a member of the Senate has to stand up and say, I object, right?
That's right. And if they do, if one member of each body objects, then we basically go into debate, so to speak. And it's like a 2-hour debate, I think, per objection. I want to read up on that again. But
it is, I can tell you, it is per objection. It is.
Yeah. So you can just imagine what that day is going to be like. You could see, I don't know if there's going to be 6 I guess pairs of objections is the right way to say it, with regard to the 6 states that they've really focused on. But I could easily see a few, and certainly at least one. We heard that Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, is talking about objecting to Pennsylvania for some reason. And so there we have it. We're going to go into some kind of debate, and we all know what the outcome of that debate will be. There will be a vote, and we'll vote to sustain the Electoral College result. But I guess these people will be, doing they'll be fulfilling their fealty to the president in objecting.
Well, apparently Senator Hawley said he knows it's not going to change the results, but he just wants to call attention to all of this election fraud and this, that has been going on. So let me ask you, listen, we've got people listening to us all over the country, all over the world, because we're on the internet as well. What do you say to people who say, the election, because listen, that's going to be a problem for President Biden as his term goes on. People who absolutely believe, because the current president has said this election was stolen, there was fraud everywhere, boxes and boxes of ballots being tossed in.
This is just bogus hogwash. I think that the Supreme Court has spoken on this. They dismissed out of hand the objections of not only the attorneys general of Texas and various other states, but also the amicus brief of 126 members of the House who claim that there was election fraud. Obviously, we know that the Electoral College has spoken, including, by the way, Republican state legislatures in many of those states who decided to abide by the lawful election results. And so we're just spinning our wheels now, Paul. And I think that really the damage that these people are doing is not to necessarily Joe Biden, who is going to be the next president, but just to the institution of democracy. And that's that's something that I'm always a little concerned about, to say the least.
What advice would you have? Let's just pretend that the one or both Georgia seats go Republican, because I know you're a Democrat and you could make a great argument as to why they won't, but it is Georgia, and so the odds are one or both seats go Republican. If that happens, what advice do you have for President Biden as he tries to govern? You'll have the House, and Nancy Pelosi has a much slimmer majority. What can he get done?
I actually think he can get significant accomplishments through Congress, as long as he abides by, I think, the principles that he's kind of enunciated repeatedly post-election and even during the election, namely, how do we get through this pandemic, Paul? How do we get through it in one piece, especially with regard to repairing the damage to the economy and then taking care of the healthcare crisis? Each of those obviously deserves probably an hour on your show if you could spare it. But, with regard to the economy, I do think there's a broad consensus within the middle of Congress, and I point to a lot of Republicans as well who agree that, we need to continue to help working families. We need to help schools. We need to help with the vaccination distribution process, as well as, help struggling businesses. And I think that if we spend our time, working on those issues, I think there's going to be tremendous agreement that that's a huge priority for the entire country. And I also think that if he continues to sound the note of unity, Paul, I do think that he was elected on a unity platform. And if he continues to talk about that and act in ways consistent with that, I think Americans will rally to his side, because this is a time when, we're just seeing staggering losses due to the pandemic, and people want to come together.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the population. The population has dropped significantly in Illinois. This is redistricting time. Governor Pritzker has said he'll only sign a fair map. We could actually lose 2 seats. We know we're losing 1, but from what I'm seeing, we might lose 2. Out of curiosity, do you believe in the fair map that says, hey, look, if you lose a Democratic seat and you lose a Republican seat, or you lose 2 Democrats, so be it? Or would you say, now let's get the Madigans of the world in there and make sure that what we're trying to do is draw out the Republicans from Congress in Illinois? What would your view be?
You're trying to get me into trouble here. I honestly don't know how the redistricting process is going to go. It's funny. I was just talking to my staff this morning that the Census Bureau is behind already in reporting their numbers. We're going to have obviously a change of administration and a new Commerce Secretary, and that person is going to have to see, okay, do we really report out the numbers if we feel that there are problems with those numbers? All of that's to say, I have no idea how this redistricting process is going to go down this year, especially the timing, which is crucial. In Illinois, we begin the petition process in, I think, September or so, and if we don't know what districts people are running for, that is really hard, because you got to get petition signatures in your own district. I don't know what's going to happen, honestly.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why I figured I'd ask you, because it's going to be a really interesting process to watch. And, God, so much going on. And, of course, you're in the federal level of Congress, but, of course, what happens here at the state level is going to be impactful potentially to you.
Oh, yeah.
And all these races. It's going to be interesting.
Can I say one thing,
Sure.
which is I still think that one massive piece of business that we haven't taken care of with regard to the pandemic is we do need to provide state and local aid. It's getting to a crisis situation for many state governments, but also village governments and local governments. Paul, we've already laid off 1.3 million people. I'm talking about government workers across the country. And a lot of these executives are, basically using Band-Aids and, wire hangers to kind of hold their budgets together. And if they don't get the aid necessary, we're going to be laying off a lot of first responders, firefighters, police officers, healthcare workers, teachers. And guess what? These are the people we need to reopen the economy and, get people vaccinated and take care of the healthcare crisis. So it's all an issue that I think has to be dealt with very early on in the Biden administration.
Well, I won't say I envy you, but I will say that I wish you luck in going back for us, and to you, Congressman Roger Krishnamoorthi, to your family, your kids, your wife, a very happy New Year to all, and keep that positive attitude, trying to get stuff.
Happy New Year, my friend. 2021 will definitely be better than 2020. I predict it. You heard it here.
By definition, it has to be. Thank you, Congressman.
Yes, sir.
Happy New Year. Thanks for joining me.